Joshua Jenkins. George and Aileen Jenkins adopted Joshua in 1980 when he was an infant. They lived in Los Angeles, California. When Joshua was 6 years old, he was placed in a special education class because he had dyslexia. He went through many schools, but none of them suited his needs. In 1993, George moved the family from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, Nevada. At the time, Joshua was 12 years old, and his sister Megan was only 7. He knew Megan was also adopted. Joshua loved his sister and often protected her. When Joshua was in 8th grade, a school psychologist noted that his problems were far more severe than his academic performance suggested. The psychologist observed that Joshua spent most of his time alone and displayed strange behavior. For instance, Joshua claimed he had spoken to aliens. He exhibited symptoms of schizophrenia. His parents decided to consult other specialists. A different doctor prescribed medication, but unfortunately, the medicine had adverse effects. His condition worsened over time. As Joshua grew older, his mental health significantly declined. He became increasingly unstable. At 14, he broke his father's arm with a baseball bat. George and Aileen told friends they were afraid of Joshua and worried about what he might do. George decided it was best to send Joshua to a boarding school for troubled teens in Los Angeles. Joshua started attending the boarding school in the summer of 1995, around the age of 15. On February 2, 1996, George and Aileen picked Joshua up from the boarding school. They then drove to Aileen's parents' house in California, planning to spend the weekend there. A medical appointment had been scheduled for Joshua a few days later, where he was expected to be prescribed antipsychotic medication. At around 4 p.m. the next day, neighbors called the fire department. Rescuers found a fire had started in the master bedroom, where 5 bodies were discovered. The deceased were 50-year-old George, his 48-year-old wife Aileen, their 10-year-old daughter Megan, and Aileen's parents, 70-year-old Bill Grossman and 74-year-old Alla Grossman. All had been killed violently before the fire started. The following morning, the story of the massacre made headlines. Articles about the killer included a photo of Joshua, who had fled the scene in his father's car. A convenience store clerk recognized Joshua from the news when he came into her store that morning. She called the police, and Joshua was arrested a few miles from the store. Under custody, the 15-year-old confessed to everything. He said he found a hammer among his grandfather's tools and initially went to his parents' room but did nothing. Then he went to the living room around midnight. Joshua heard his father wake up and go to the bathroom. He attacked George in the bathroom, striking him 13 times on the head with the hammer. The sounds of the attack woke 48-year-old Aileen, who ran to the kitchen to call the police. Joshua intercepted her. As Aileen lunged for the phone, Joshua jumped on her back and struck her 10 times on the head with the hammer. Aileen's 74-year-old mother heard the commotion, and her cries caught Joshua's attention. He entered her room and hit her 14 times with the hammer. Then, he went to the 70-year-old grandfather, who slept separately, and struck him 17 times. Most horrifyingly, none of the victims were dead yet. Joshua grabbed a knife from the kitchen, returned to his father, and slit his throat. 10-year-old Megan woke up while Joshua was attacking their father. He told her to lie down and cover her head with a pillow. After killing his parents and grandparents, Joshua moved all the bodies into the master bedroom. He then sat on the couch and watched TV all night, unable to sleep. The next morning, Megan came downstairs, asking Joshua what had happened. He told her their grandmother was sick, and the others had gone to the hospital with her. Later that day, they went to the store and bought an axe. Joshua didn't explain to Megan why he needed it. That same day, he attacked Megan. He threw her onto the couch and, as he later admitted, swung the axe at her head like it was a baseball. He struck her 6 times with the blunt side of the axe. Then, he placed her body in the bedroom with the others and set the house on fire. It was revealed that after starting the fire, Joshua intended to drive to the family's garage in Los Angeles and commit suicide. However, he was arrested before he could get there. Joshua Jenkins stood trial in May 1997, about 15 months after the murders. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. The district attorney argued that while Joshua was emotionally disturbed, he was not psychotic. The prosecutor highlighted that Megan's murder was particularly disturbing for Joshua. He claimed he used the axe to minimize her suffering, but evidence suggested otherwise. Investigators found shallow cuts on Megan's neck, indicating Joshua had held a knife to her throat, likely attempting to assault her before killing her. Joshua's trial lasted 5 weeks. The jury found him sane at the time of the murders. At 15, Joshua was sentenced 112 years in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2020, he had the right to appeal for parole but chose not to exercise it. As of this video, Joshua Jenkins is 44 years old and incarcerated at Mule Creek State Prison in California. Nicholas Browning. At the beginning of 2008, the Browning family lived in Cockeysville, Maryland. John Browning was a well-known and respected business attorney. His wife, Tamara, was a homemaker, and together they had 3 sons, Nicholas, Gregory, and Benjamin. The boys were known for being good kids, well-liked at their schools, and active in various sports. John and Tamara were always present at their children's games, cheering them on enthusiastically. On the night of February 1, 2008, Nicholas, who was just shy of his 16th birthday, stayed over at a friend's house. He returned home the following day around 5 p.m., dropped off by his friend. Minutes later, Nicholas ran back outside, telling his friend that his father was dead. His friend immediately called 911, informing the dispatcher that he thought Nicholas's father had suffered a heart attack. When emergency responders arrived, they were shocked by what they found. 45-year-old John Browning was lying dead on a sofa in the downstairs living room. It was immediately clear he hadn't died of a heart attack. His body was covered in blood. The police searched the rest of the house and discovered the lifeless bodies of 44-year-old Tamara, 13-year-old Gregory, and 11-year-old Benjamin. All 3 had been shot and killed. Investigators determined that the family had been murdered using a 9mm handgun. Although the house appeared ransacked, nothing had been stolen. The police decided to question the sole surviving member of the Browning family, Nicholas. At first, Nicholas denied any knowledge of the murders. However, detectives noted his odd demeanor. He didn't appear upset, and it even seemed as though he didn't care about the brutal deaths of his family members. Their suspicions grew when they discovered the key to the family's gun safe hidden under Nicholas's bed. After several hours of questioning, Nicholas finally confessed. He admitted to killing his entire family. When asked why he did it, Nicholas claimed that his father was an alcoholic who had physically and emotionally abused him for years. He also accused his mother of being an enabler who allowed the abuse to continue. But this raised another question. Why did he kill his younger brothers? Nicholas coldly explained that he thought killing them would make the staged burglary more believable. The district attorney later revealed to the press that Nicholas had spoken during his confession about his parents' wealth. He mentioned that the detectives had been kind to him, albeit firm during the interrogation. While Nicholas alleged years of abuse, investigators found no evidence to support his claims. Even if his accusations against his parents were true, it didn't justify the cold-blooded murder of his 13 and 11-year-old brothers. In October 2008, 16-year-old Nicholas Browning pled guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. In January 2009, he was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. 2 of these sentences were to be served concurrently, while the other 2 could be suspended for good behavior. However, Nicholas would have to serve a minimum of 33 years in prison before becoming eligible for parole. Today, Nicholas Browning is serving his sentence at the North Branch Correctional Institution. If his parole request is granted, he could be released at the age of 49. William Lembcke. At the end of 2000, William Lembcke, a 16-year-old boy, lived with his family in a wooded area of Stevens County, Washington. Their home was approximately 60 miles from the nearest major city. His 49-year-old father, Robert, was a logger, while his 43-year-old mother, Diana, suffered from multiple sclerosis and rarely left the house. William had an 18-year-old sister, Jolyn, and a 13-year-old brother, Wesley. Though William received good grades at school, he had a history of troubling behavior. For instance, he was caught hacking into one of his teacher's computers. In the fall of 2000, he spent several months in juvenile detention after breaking into a neighbor's home and stealing cash and a silver bar. As Christmas approached, neighbors noticed something unusual. It appeared that only William was staying in the house, and when asked about his family, he claimed they had traveled to California to visit a sick uncle. However, his story didn't sit well with the neighbors. Both family cars were still parked outside, and William was acting strangely. On December 29, 2000, they decided to contact the police and request a welfare check. When officers arrived, they discovered bloodstains in various parts of the house. Confronting William, they demanded to know what had happened to his family. Shaking and crying, William confessed to killing his parents, sister, and brother. He told the officers that he had dumped their bodies in a ditch 2 miles away. At the police station, William recounted the events of December 23. That evening, he had argued with his father, who scolded him for not bringing in firewood and threatened to kick him out of the house for being lazy. Later, as Robert went to take a shower, William retrieved a rifle and waited in the hallway. He approached his father from behind and shot him twice in the head without saying a word. After killing his father, William went to the kitchen, where his mother, Diana, was sitting. He tried to shoot her, but the rifle jammed. He retrieved another rifle from his parents' closet and shot her 4 times. Once in the right arm, once in the shoulder, and twice in the head. He then entered the living room, where his sister Jolyn and brother Wesley were attempting to hide. He shot Jolyn twice in the back and once in the head. He then turned to Wesley, shooting him twice in the head. After ensuring they were all dead, William confessed to desecrating Jolyn's body. He then loaded the bodies into a vehicle and disposed of them in a nearby ditch. Returning home, William tried to clean up the crime scene, painting over the bloodstains he could find. William was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. His trial began in August 2001, about 8 months after the murders. His defense lawyers argued that the killings were unplanned and that William had simply snapped during an argument with his father. They requested a lesser charge of second-degree murder, which would result in a lighter sentence. The prosecution, however, presented damning evidence suggesting a far more sinister motive. They revealed that William had secretly recorded his sister Jolyn while she showered. On the same videotape, he had also filmed himself engaging in inappropriate acts while watching the footage. Prosecutors argued that William's parents had either discovered these recordings or learned about his actions and, on the night of the murders, threatened to send him to a boarding school. This, they claimed, pushed William to kill his entire family. Forensic evidence supported the prosecution's claims. An autopsy on Jolyn revealed that she had been assaulted shortly before her death. DNA tests confirmed William's involvement. Faced with this overwhelming evidence, William ultimately admitted to his actions during the trial. The trial lasted a week, and the jury found William guilty on all 4 counts of first-degree murder. The judge, condemning his lack of remorse, described him as a monster. He noted that William showed no signs of regret for his actions and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As of this video, William Lembcke is 40 years old and serving his sentence at the Walla Walla State Penitentiary in Washington.